Okay, I think a majority of the people are here. I think we can get started then, Dana.
Okay, I'll start by sharing my
Thank
screen
you.
in just one moment. I'll just start by saying that we have met last week. The CW team has met, and we put some things together. Um, we didn't have a document before. We were essentially learning and figuring out as we were going. So if there's additional information we need to clarify, we're happy to update it in the document and kind of we'll show you where this is on Confluence for us, and we'll go from there. You'll also see just because there's some placeholders for people to add, we'll have a few other things after the meeting. So definitely still work in progress, but we'll work together with you to make sure that you have the information you need. Kate, anything else to add before I start sharing my screen?
No, not at all.
Okay. Okay. So today we're meeting to go through kind of the step-by-step in cutover extract management. We've divided up to what happens with the extract before we kick off cutover, essentially the planning period, and then during execution, what usually happens. And I think ultimately we've gone through this once with our cycle one, so process improvements are always welcome. If there's anything that needs to be improved, we'll just say that there's a few things that are dictated to us by IMITs. So it's nothing that some things we cannot control. Some things could be up for discussion and some things we can decide to change. So, and of course we're learning as we're going, so we can always ask IMITs. Okay, so I'll kick it off with talking about the planning stage. Um, I'll just maybe before I actually talk through the details, if there's any questions, either raise your hand. Christy, you can help me if I don't notice a hand up.
Yes.
But please, if there's a point that I pause and anybody has a question, you can go ahead and ask the question. Okay, so first of all, we do request an extract from IMITs. And I'll go through what exactly is in the extract in a moment to support our planning of cutover, be it what the scope should be it resourcing. We also use some of the extracts to support kind of understanding what the clinics put in the different columns. So we do usually ask for a one pull. We do so through an IMITS JIRA ticket request. So like I said, the purpose is to get an extract from CW Cerner with the information from each of the clinics that are going live with a cycle for the planning purposes, and then ultimately we'll use the same tickets for the execution for the day-to-day extract pulls. So we use the JIRA ticket for ease of everybody. I've linked here the tickets that we've used for cycle one. IMITS is happy for us to copy the tickets, but things need to be updated in the ticket, meaning some fields that were applicable for a previous ticket need to be removed and updated. So first of all, we do have a ticket that's separate for all future appointments, waitlist and delta, those all together, and then a ticket separately for outreach because outreach locations are different, and we needed to make sure that the fields that we were asking for are separate. So there's two tickets there. I won't go through what needed to be removed, but you can see there the priority needs to be changed. When you clone it, change to none. The issue track needs to be deleted, and then et cetera, et cetera. We do ask specifically for cycle two that the official cutover start date, because and maybe I'll go through the ticket and I'll show you what we actually had, because IMITs do require some information on when do we need this by, what is the request, like when are we starting cutover, so they can have prioritized kind of their workload, their own workload. We're obviously not their full and only organization or hospital that they support, and then ultimately that you tag us. I'll go through a ticket in a second, but I'll just say that for us, Ray Cohen, one of the directors, he's the one that works with IMITS closely. He's the one he meets with them on an ongoing basis, and he helps them prioritize. So if something needs to be kind of expedited, you can always reach out to me if Ray is not available, but we can then make sure that this certain tickets are prioritized or certain requests are being kind of worked on. It's usually good to go through myself or Kate, because otherwise Ray wouldn't know what you guys are asking about certain tickets. But we'll make sure to convey to Ray that you guys will be putting in those requests. So if something comes through RSDQ as a question or an inquiry, that he'll know to help you guys prioritize this with IMITs. I'll pause here for a second because this is just what the ticket needs to have in it. Before I go into showing you a ticket, any questions? Okay. And as you can see, after that, I'll talk through the criteria, and this is where Kate will help me. But I wanted to show you guys what a ticket looks like, just so you know what we're expecting. So, okay, so this is the ticket that we use for cycle 1. And when you clone this, this will obviously have all the information, but just need to make sure that certain things are updated. So like I said, the priority needs to be changed, and then the issue track, etc. You can leave it assigned to Ray because he will be helping us with priority. The description just needs to be changed to the appropriate cycle. The SharePoint link, this is something that I haven't accounted for, so I will make sure that I include it in the Word document that we are going through right now. So I'll just make a note for that for me. So when you go into the Word document, you'll see that updated there. So it's essentially where we want the extracts to land. IMITS doesn't have access to Confluence. It's also not as secure as SharePoint, so we will continue using SharePoint for the extract. And we'll just create a new link. So cycle 2 will all live with cycle 2 documents. 1 second. Okay. Ultimately, what else IMITS needs is the legacy name, the Cerner legacy names. We are meeting as a team to make sure that we have those, and this will also be shared with you. At the end of this, I'll share a link to where all these materials, the document I'm looking at, the criteria, the list of CW Cerner names that we need, it will all be in one place so you can reference. But ultimately, it needs to be attached to the ticket. So IMITS has one source for everything. It's not linked to anything. This is where there's some dates that IMITS needs to work against that they're getting from us. So what we will want to do for this table, and this is what I've outlined as well in the Word document, is what we need to populate in this table. So first of all, you can leave the priority as is, the extract type as is, and then we have proposed first draft of extracts due by, and this is why I noted September 15th. We can talk to IMITS if they think this is something that's too aggressive. We can push it potentially by a week, but this is what I wanted to target as the first extract. And then this section of the table, you can leave by itself, you can delete this one. And I've noted that in the Word document as well in the SOP, just because we want to ultimately meet together with you as we start doing the actual planning. We'll get the first extract, we'll look at the work, and we'll work together to understand when we want different extracts run during execution. So I don't want to define this section right away, and we'll communicate to IMITS that we won't have that right away. We will have that after we are evaluate some of the data and do some analysis, and we'll kind of put those dates against it here. And then just because we only have a few days that we can actually start Cutover, I noted that we will probably start Cutover on January 8th. We won't start it before the new year, and we won't start it on the new year, so we will just put it against here, and if anything changes, we will change it. But that was a date that I wanted to put forward in this ticket. Afterwards, there's no further changes. Like I said, just please tag Kate, Linda, and I. And then as we do some of our planning, we'll obviously work with you and talk to you, but maybe we'll kind of add comments on the ticket if there's any questions from IMITS or anything like that. I'll pause here for a second. Any questions? Okay. I'll go back to the SOP. So we look through the ticket itself and what to populate in the ticket. Then, like I noted, there's some documents to attach, the criteria, like what are we asking, what are the details in the columns that we're asking IMIS to pull, which we'll go in through in a second. And then the list of legacy Cerner locations. And then I noted here that the cadence of pulling extract will determine together. Kate, anything to add before we move into the next bullet? From your perspective?
No, I think we went over pretty much everything.
Okay, excellent. We left the next one is the extract analysis. This is where I think we just need to work together. We haven't determined this, at least from our perspective, on what that looks like. I think there's a few groups that are going to be involved in the extract analysis, ultimately RSDQ, Asset CW that are working on Cutover. And then we might also, depending on their availability and capacity, will include CST scheduling, just so we can look at the information in the extract, identify things that we have questions on, maybe we have to take anything to the clinics, and then kind of help us move forward with planning. We'll take it like from a project team perspective, we'll do the analysis on how many resources are required, and we'll take it away to confirm. We'll start kind of identifying, we have gaps, like we might need to get some external resources to help us out. So basically, I think that ultimately what I'm trying to say here for bullet number 2 is that we need to probably meet with you once we get the extract, look at it together, and then determine what else we need for analysis. Any questions or any comments?
Yeah, that sounds good, Dana. Is Deepa here?
Hi, Deepa.
Candice also showed us like this sort of tracker type of master sheet she uses. I'm not sure if you've seen that yet. That's pretty helpful too, to track all the things you basically said, and we can go over that too in a later time.
Okay, excellent. Yes, whatever tool works for you. I know Candice was and is still the master of everything scheduling Cutover, where I know there's some fundamental differences between kind of just a regular ambulatory cycle and specifically BC cancer, which she was focused on. So whatever works for you, I would say work on it, and I'm happy to see it. I haven't seen it, but otherwise that makes sense.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay,
Dana, it's Jackie here.
Hi, Jackie. Yeah.
We had a session with Candice last week, and so I recorded it. It was an hour long. When I share this recording link, I can share that one as well. And you guys in your free time that you have so much can have a look at it. But she is going to give us links, so it actually does go line by line.
Okay,
so
perfect.
I don't think Deepa, she shared that with us. I'm behind in my emails.
I was trying to look for it too.
Okay. I don't think she shared it with us. Once she does, I'll forward it on to this group as well.
Excellent. That'd be wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, we'd find some time probably to skim through it and see what we can gather out of it in terms of how much time we have to actually look at it. But I'd be excited to see what she shared with you. Okay. The next stage actually follows into execution. So I thought I'd maybe just pause here for a second and talk to you about the criteria, just so you have in mind where we had originally started from and what brought us to today. So when we were planning for cycle 1, we essentially have spoken with CSD scheduling with Candice, and we've put forward the criteria that they've put forward before, like used for wave 1. And then during, that information was sufficient for us as we were doing some planning, but then when we got into execution, we found that we needed more columns. We needed more information from CW Cerner to be able to then provide it to the clinics to do Cutover. And this really, like where it lies is just different clinics obviously sometimes use different fields for different things, or they map things a certain way. We've also found that the order of the columns that we originally asked for with the criteria wasn't supportive enough of our cutover execution. Essentially, we had to change the order just so this could be a little bit easier for the clerks to, and a little bit faster, to be honest, to do cutover. So we couldn't change it when we started cutover. So this was a lesson learned for us. So essentially, what we've done is all of the amazing work that the CIMs have done during during cutover, and then kind of give their feedback. They basically put the columns in the order that they wanted. They've flagged which columns they wanted to add or which columns they think might not be needed, but really just to make a criteria document, basically a document that includes all the criteria for cutover that we needed in the order that we wanted it. And then this would be our request for cycle 2. Hopefully cycle 3, we can just rinse and repeat. So I won't go through each of it, but I did want to show it to you because I think it's worth it. So I will pull it into the screen here. So this is also on the Confluence page, which I will share the link to when I finish sharing here. But this really looks at the criteria for all future appointments, deltas, future appointments outreach, and then future appointments outreach delta. There's additional document that looks specifically into waitlist because waitlist was a bit different. But really it is the order of what we wanted to see. So you can see the what we were hoping to see is the patient identifiers first, then the appointment identifiers, and then it goes through other criteria that will be just helpful. The order of it to do cutover to enter the information. I'll pause here for questions. Any comments from Kate? Because you've gone through this. Anything else to add?
Yeah, I think this is just going to be a huge upgrade. We spent a ridiculous amount of time this past time reordering columns. So this will be very helpful to have it start off this way. And then just a note, I know we'll talk about this later, but in CW, just so that everyone's on the same page, outreach, all the outreach appointments are in one core location. So you have to sort by subservice and appointment type in order to see which ones are actually applicable to cycle 2. So that's just why they're pulled separately in a different extract.
Thank you, Kate. Any questions, comments? It's essentially just to make our lives easier and quicker to get the assignments to the
Oh my God, it'll be
clerks.
so much easier.
Okay, I'll pull this out of the way and scroll through to the next section, which is execution. What I'll show you right now is just the steps that we do before every shift, or in some cases we did it or the night before just to have it ready for the next day. So this really looks at what are we doing to each document. So IMITS would pull the extracts daily, and then what do we do with it until it gets to the clerk. You'll see a few things repeated just because we did the same things for every document, but we really just wanted to really separate it so there is a clarity on which of the which documents we're working on. At one point we had just 7 extracts, and it really is because we were finding out new information that we wanted. So we wouldn't just highlight, okay, we have scheduled appointments, we have outreach, we have scheduled appointments delta, outreach delta, then we have wait list and wait list delta and outreach wait list. And so there's just so much that we really wanted to separate it and make sure that we highlight it for you before we hand it over. So I'll start with a bullet before I go into each of the types, because this was a really important point that really helped us track what work has been done. So before the first shift, whenever we got a new document, so for example, if immunology is going to start the first day of cutover on January 8th, and then so we used this document and we worked on it, and then let's say allergies started on January 15th, we would use the document and then work on it before the 15th, just to get the most up-to-date information for each clinic before they start cutover. We pulled the information and worked on it before their first shift. So this is what I mean before first shift here. We defined unique IDs for tracking purposes, and ultimately we can work on it together with the project team because this will go into our progress reporting. But essentially, what we did each shift, and we'll go into it, we've added columns, and we've added unique IDs to each of the rows, because if there's an error or an issue, it was very helpful for us to find it in a different extract or in a different, go back and check if what the information was. It was helpful for us to cross-reference. So I have the master data, but I have a few documents that were given to a clerk, and they had their separate assignments. So it was helpful for us to kind of cross-reference and see what they've done and what they worked on. Using the unique ID, we didn't have to like search for a PHN and cross-reference any other information. We just used the unique ID. But the unique ID was defined by us. And I'll just show you what we've done for the last cutover. I hope that all makes sense. I think hypothetically talking, it's a bit hard to imagine, but we've developed a unique ID system. So for example, we've started working on the complex care document. So we got the document, we've added a column called unique ID. We've put the two, this identifier here, CC0001, dragged it down. This way we knew we give it to the clerk sends it back. If there's issues, we can just say, oh, this line 0007 has an issue. Let's make sure that we kind of keep track of that until the issue is resolved. And we don't have to like look for it in the next extract, for example. It's just a way for us to manage and make sure that we are finishing things on time. And if there's issues, we're able to kind of keep track of that. So we can work on it together closer to when we get to. It's really a work that we've done a few days before we start Cutover. And we can talk more about that, but I just wanted to flag that this is something we've done. Okay. I'll go through the scheduled appointments and the outreach locations, and then we'll go through the rest, and I'll show you kind of the similarities. So before our first shift, we get the extracts from IMITs. We sort it through the field that looks at the location, just because we want the appropriate location. For example, we'll look for the location that's associated with immunology, for example. We'll sort it by the date and then the name of the patient. We've noticed that this was helpful for the clerks, because if there's any kind of other kind of group appointment type things, or any appointments that the patient had a few appointments, they were already on the patient window, they could just do that all at once. So we wanted to kind of group that date and name. Then we add tracking columns. So so there's a few columns that before we kind of hand it over to the clerks, we want to add. So like I talked about with the unique ID, the assigned to, the validated, then the validated date, status, and comments. And I'll note here, for status, we've always just made sure that it's all populated with not started. Unique ID, like I talked about, we populated. And then there's a couple of other things that I'll maybe pause here for a second and let Kate talk about. The bullet one before last about add 3 additional columns and map appointments.
Yeah. So the 3 things that we wanted to map based on, so I will back up. During validation, we're going to ask the scheduling team to create appointment mapping from the CW appointment types to the CST appointment types. And those can get added into the SOP. And then what we did here was we actually mapped the appointments. So adding 3, you know what, we added 5 additional columns. I said 3, it's 5.
No problem, it'll be updated.
We updated the location. Is it 4? Anyways, sorry, wow. We updated the location. So especially this happened in cycle 1 and it'll happen in cycle 2 as well. A bunch of the locations are going from 1 core location to multiple. So for cycle 2 plastic surgery, for instance, is going from 1 core location to 7. And so we tried as much as possible to map that for the clerks, especially at first. As we got farther down into the cutover process, we found that there wasn't a lot. They know this so well that it wasn't super helpful for us to do that anymore. But at the beginning, we definitely did that. So we mapped, we had the column for the CW location, and then we added in the CST location. And then we did the same with the appointment types. So they would get the like new appointment type name. As I said, you'll be adding that into the SOP as well, but we found it helpful, at least at first, to just have it side by side. It also helped then the clerks could like work through and validate, and we really encouraged them if there was anything that didn't make sense to them to bring it up, and then we could have a discussion with them and the scheduling team about it to make sure that we had mapped things correctly mostly. And then the medical service in some cases has changed. So we mapped that. And then we also mapped the appointment, or not the appointment, the encounter type. So for outreach encounters versus outpatient encounters versus in cycle 1, we had some outpatient OB encounters. So yeah, we mapped those things. There's actually 4 columns, Dana. Sorry, I don't know where my brain
4
is.
it is.
But there's 4. So those are the 4 things we mapped. So that's what we would do before we gave the cutover extracts to the clerks at the beginning of the day. And as I said, after a couple of days of giving them this, when we started doing deltas, we didn't map as much unless it was really complicated. Or if the clerks really didn't have much experience. We had a couple clinics in cycle 1 where the clerks were very, very new to their roles. And so we continued to map for them because they just didn't have the experience. Whereas like in renal, for example, the clerks had been there for a long time. They knew better. They were able to just look at an appointment and know what it was going to be in CST once we'd given them a couple examples. So we stopped appointment mapping for them. But any questions about that?
Do you guys have an example to show us those additional 4? Or I'm not sure if Abraham and Deepa.
Yeah, Dana, are you able to pull up one of the extracts from this sphere?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll pull it. 1 second.
Awesome, thank you.
And I think before we kind of, like I said, we're still making sure that the SOP is like tip top.
Makes sense.
So we'll add, is that okay, Kate, we'll add those columns or what they're,
yes, absolutely.
The title, the headers, so we can then,
I was going to ask that too, if you could list out the 4 for us. And
yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. And we can tell you where exactly in the extract we put them as well. We like lined them up with the corresponding CST ones, basically. The one thing that we did not map, which we thought about it and tried it, and then we decided it was not good, was the visit modality. In CW Cerner, most of the visit modalities are included in the appointment types. And so when I was mapping the first couple extracts, I tried mapping the visit modalities out into a separate line, but I just determined that it just felt really risky. It felt like I was going to make a lot of mistakes. So we just left it. What's the other? Oh, I did 2. Okay, well, that was useless. I don't know why I did 2. It's fine. Do 4. So this is what it looked like. So beside the location, the blue is the CW and the green is the CST ones, is what we did. So you can see line R is the location from CW. So I added in the location from CST. Q and S are identical in all of our clinic builds, so I don't think you need Q. But S is the scheduling location, and then U was the appointment type. And then if you just scroll to the right a little bit, we added in their encounter type and medical service over here. So that the information is kind of in the order that you need to put it into. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, we'll I can describe that a bit better in the SOP, and we'll give some screenshots.
Hey, Kate, just thinking for the facility column,
Yeah.
I agree we probably don't need it, but unless there are clinics that are going to be built
Yeah.
under the main facility.
Yes, and I don't
Like,
think in
I
cycle
don't think
two
that
we're
we
gonna
have
any.
any. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That was why I did it initially, and then I think they had done that in
Wave one.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
they had done that maybe in wave one, but yeah, we don't have any that are being built
Yeah,
in the main
because
facility.
it's usually more typical in the first, like in the first wave when we go
Totally.
live with acute. Yeah.
Okay, I can add that to the SOP, and then Kate, you can review
Thank
and
you
add
so much,
anything.
Dana.
No problem. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, I'll go back here to our document, our SOP. And then ultimately after this, we'll make the assignment. So we look at the schedule for each day, and that will be updated on Confluence, and our team, the BAs, the coordinators will connect with, we essentially will have the schedule for the whole duration of Cutover, but if there's any changes, what I've done is literally download a schedule every day and make sure that I have the most up-to-date scheduled when I created assignments. Upload those back on SharePoint, and then we will make sure, and when I say we, it's our CW kind of project team, will make sure that everybody that needs to have access to SharePoint has access to SharePoint. I'll just maybe make a note. I felt, at least the portion I've done, which was like the unique ID, the assignments, and the assignment creation, it didn't really take as much time as, like, it didn't really take a lot of time. It's really just pulling the information, looking at who's working that day, and making the assignments. And so that's from like an effort perspective. Kate, I don't know how long and how much effort you ended up spending on those columns.
Definitely the appointment mapping takes the most time. I will say one of our lessons learned was that we didn't think about the appointment mapping from CW to CST early enough. So depending on the scheduling team. So the scheduling team ended up making us like mapping tables, which was super helpful. What we found is because they weren't done during validation, some of them were wrong. And so there was like some work done, so we've talked to the scheduling team and we're asking them to be responsible for making us those documents during validation instead of doing it later. So I'm hopeful that there will be less confusion and errors in that case because it'll be done with the SMEs so that everyone agrees. There were a couple that were quite convoluted and hard, especially considering some of the appointment types from CW Cerner are no longer in CST Cerner. And then there are some new appointment types in CST Cerner that weren't in CW Cerner. So just knowing what maps to what when they aren't one for one. I'm hopeful that that'll go a little bit better if we're asking them to do that in validation instead of afterwards.
Are we thinking then that in the extract, they're not going to do that mapping in the extract? They're just going to use that additional table provided by scheduling?
I think that it's still helpful, I think, to do it in the extract, at least for the first round. Although, yes, that is a decision you could make, is just to give them the table.
Right.
And that we just thought it was really helpful, at least for the first time you give them an extract, to have the mapping done in the extract. But that's totally
right. So you'll just give IMITS the mapping document and then they can import it in.
No, it'll have to be. Is that possible? Can we do that?
Yeah, that's what we've done for past, unless
really?
there's
I
some
think
reason.
it has to be a discussion with IMITS.
Okay.
So I don't know if we can say that this could happen yet, but I can bring it up with Ray.
Okay, because we did that in past iterations, but maybe not for CW. Maybe it was all done manually.
I don't know. I didn't know that was an option.
Yeah, we did that. I know we did that for BC Cancer. Maybe it was more manual for CW. Can't remember what we did for wave one. Also, Dana, under number 3, I think that there's one more field, and that was date completed, no? because I know we've got validation date, and we also had date completed, I think.
So these are the column. We had the couple of different columns for waitlist than we had for the appointments. So this is probably where you're commenting. When I looked at this and I pulled the SOP together, I was thinking like that might be sufficient, but we can reassess because essentially what the clerks would do, they would, as you know, they would cut over and then they would cut over like a few lines and then they'll go back and revalidate. So once they validate, that's ultimately when we know it's done. So I didn't know that we needed it.
Okay.
But we can decide otherwise.
Yeah. Okay.
Good point though. Thanks, Linda.
And sorry, when I clicked on the link that you had sent, it opened up like a clerk SOP. So I thought that was the one that you wanted me to update. And I didn't look any further for this one. So I apologize. I didn't actually update the waitlist columns, but in looking at the things, and I can wait to speak to that until we get to waitlist, but I think a lot of the stuff that we ended up doing for waitlist in terms of the columns should be fixed with the new extract order of columns. Because we spent a lot of time hiding columns and moving things around. Yeah.
Yes. So we didn't look at it specifically because I think it's basically what we're going to end up, we'll look at it through when we do the extract analysis, but essentially, yeah, all your feedback into what the criteria needed to be and in what order, we're going to ask that of IMITS. So hopefully, yeah, this is going to be a bit smoother this time around. Okay, we'll go into waitlist in a second. I just wanted to go through outreach. So similarly, basically just management, like cleanup and management of the columns. So like Kate had noted, they're all under the same location. So the fields that we're using to sort is the subservice and the appointment type. In the extract that we're asking, those will be right next to each other. Kate, I will let you maybe talk about it. Is there anything else to say? If you're back, I see you lost your audio.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my audio. So I would say from what I looked, I think that only Oak Tree and Endocrine will have outreach this time, if I remember correctly. So it's just a matter of looking through and identifying what subservice and appointment types are like actually need to be cut over, because most of the things pulled in the extract will just be able to be removed. And we can look, when we first pull that extract, we can look and help validate what should be kept. The only thing that I will note, which I didn't think about till after we made this, Dana, is the blocked time for outreach is only based on the only identifier is the provider name. If I remember correctly from pulling the extracts the first time, only neurology was using block time within the outreach location. But again, when we first pull it, we can validate that with you guys to make sure that we're keeping the right information in the extract.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kate. That's a really good point. We'll do that through our extract analysis then. And we can add to that SOP then. So it's all in one place and it's clear if you hand it over to somebody else on your team to do. But we'll do that. Okay. Next we have appointments Delta. I won't go through all of it step by step because it's literally a copy paste, and I'll just update some of the information that we just said, like the additional columns. What we have done this time around, I know it might be done differently in different sites, but because in some clinics there wasn't much Delta day to day, what we did is we started on Monday, and then on Thursday we looked at that extract of Delta, and we only gave them Delta to do on the Friday. So we gave them Delta to cut over only one time. We sorted by date and the name again. The one thing that came up from the clerks is that sometimes, because we're not doing Delta day to day, there could be a few changes to one appointment or one patient's appointment. So this is where the validation is really crucial, is to make sure that the information that they've put in there is the most updated and the latest information, which is what they would validate. They'll use CW Cerner to validate. So this is really ultimately, when we have the clerks doing cutover, we'll just have to kind of troubleshoot with them. But a lot of the questions that came up, at least originally at the start of it, is like, oh, but this Delta says that this appointment has changed. But on CW Cerner, I see that this appointment is already like the most up to date. What should I do? Our direction ultimately was, if you're a really new clerk or you're a clerk from another clinic helping out, your extract is the source of truth. But if you're the unit, like the clinic's clerk, and you know best and you know all your patients, we trust you to cut over. If you think that CW Cerner is the most up to date, you should use that. That's just a side note about how we manage deltas. Any questions? Okay, won't go through the steps. They're identical to above. Same as for outreach. We just talked about, it's the same. And then I'll move on to the wait list. You'll see some highlighted in yellow. This is where we're going to have to add a bit more information. And so this is where, while the step-by-step in terms of like adding the columns and any additional columns, they'll be the same as above. If there's any sort of management, I'll let the CMs and Linda will go in and do that at a later date.
And I will
Linda, anything? Yeah.
I was just going to say that, so in cycle 1, the waitlist extracts are really difficult to manage because there's no standard for how the clinics were using CW Cerner. And so what we're doing to help mitigate that this time is we're starting to meet with the clinics in September to go through a waitlist cleanup SOP that has been created and actually tell them what we need them to do to their waitlists in CW Cerner, so that there's less work for you to do with the extracts, and so that people are using the columns in the same way. So hopefully that'll cut down the amount of analysis time that is required in the extracts.
Yeah, and the other piece to add to that is that not only using the columns in the same way, but some clinics might have used just the waitlist conversation, and others would use the waitlist conversation and bits of paper, and others were just using paper. So for those that have, things like paper only, where they can, if they can't be creating waitlist encounters, we're just making sure that they have a template extract or a template Excel file to populate, just to make it a little bit, like Kate said, a little bit more streamlined. Because they're just different flavors and different combos of not only how they use the waitlist extract, but how they manage their waitlist in general.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you both.
Linda, it's Jackie. Can I ask you a question what you mean about the extracts? So you're going to ask the clinics that have like referral pieces of paper to plop all those patients into an extract and use columns
into an Excel file.
Excel. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So and so Kaylee created an Excel file, and we'll be looking at that just to kind of make sure that all of the data elements that we need to enter into CST Cerner are available.
And also so that we're not having to do that during cutover, because that's what happened last time. Mm-hmm. So basically, like, providing this to the clinic, like, this is the template. If you choose not to use it, then your clerks will be on their own for determining what goes into where in CST.
Yeah.
And ultimately, this is meetings that we're going to run starting mid-September, and we're going to meet once with the clinics and talk and like essentially hand over the SOP and the Excel that Linda and Kate just described. And this is like as part of operations effort in preparing for cutover, this will be their responsibility to clean up their wait list. So either reduce if there's numbers that of people that have already been seen, but they've never been like cleaned out of the wait list and close those wait list encounters, they will be closed. And then clean up any data that's there to help us better, to help cutover run smoother. I think, Jackie, we are going to have one of your team members join, or at least we've invited them. So if they're available, this is not part of this effort at all. This is, like we said, it's like operations responsibility, but we're going to try to be on top of them actually doing this, and so cutover is run better. So we're happy to share with you as we go along, and we will, as how it's going, but ultimately this is something we're just going to ask operations to do.
Perfect.
Great. Anything else to add, Linda, on wait list? I know you're going to add, and like we said, this is a work in progress, so we'll add the document.
Linda just had to jump away, but
yeah,
I think that's kind of the gist of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so if I scroll down, this literally just has a placeholder for the waitlist outreach and the waitlist delta. Any questions or anything that you still have like lingering questions about?
For cycle 1, the SOPs were really helpful. Are we going to be creating those again?
That is a great segue into the next thing we wanted to talk about.
Okay, great.
Dana, do you have the sample SOP handy, or do you want me to pull it up?
No, I can pull it up. Just give me one second.
Okay, super. Yeah, so what I've done is I've created a like SOP template that can be used to populate for the clinics. So I based it off of what we had last time and kind of pulled it all together. So this is for the book appointment and the wait list. So there's places where I've highlighted so that they can be adjusted as per the clinic, and just added. And so this beginning is just like, what is basically. The next page. So there's just some more definitions and what to do, what to open, etc. Possible issues to be aware of. And then if you just scroll down to that cheat sheet. So this is basically the part that really needs to be specialized per clinic. So I just identified where this information needs to come from. So most of it's coming from the clinic key, and then that appointment mapping from the scheduling team. So this is really the piece that the clerks will be looking at the most for their clinic. And then if you scroll down a little bit, so then here's the accept format fields for a scheduled appointment. And this, as it's made right now, is like, I mean, I think the scheduled appointments are pretty good, but this is like ideal state. So if they follow all of our direction about how to clean up their waitlist, etc., this is what they should be able to use. So this is for scheduled appointments, the accept format. And then if you scroll down a bit farther, this is for the waitlist accept format fields. And these accept format fields are based on if they follow the waitlist SOP exactly how we've written the cleanup SOP, exactly how we've written it. So this should work if they clean up their waitlist properly. So that's the like general SOP. And then I think from the RACI, like, and please, this is like, are you guys going to be the ones making clinic specific ones?
Yes, I was going to say we probably the BA, like the RSDQ BAs, when they're attending the validation, right, to get this while they're capturing stuff with the PDPs. This will just be another document that they capture and to get ahead of time, right? Because this will be figured out before cutover starts, right?
Exactly.
So Deepa, Abe, and Tutu, that makes sense, right? Like, I mean, we'll talk about it as a team as well, what makes the best sense. But you know, while you're gathering, you plunk it in here too, and it's already set for you.
Yeah, thank you for putting this together, Kate. It's really helpful.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that hopefully will help.
And Kate, if that's okay with you, I'll upload it to Confluence and I'll show the page in a second.
Is it not on Confluence? I thought I'd put it up there, but clearly not.
Maybe it is, and I don't remember, but let's,
I might not
let's
have.
flip to it and we'll find
Thank
out
you.
right away. So we created, sorry, the presenting bar is in my way. There we go. So we created pages for this cycle, as you can see. There's also for the rest of the cycles, but ultimately I've started uploading information into here. I'll create additional boxes for additional documents, but the SOP lives here. Then the criteria, I'll probably just separate it so it's appointment separate, delta separate, and waitlist separate. And then we have the legacy names, which we're going to finalize very shortly. And then we'll just continue uploading data into here. I'll upload the generic SOP that we just looked at. And then as we go through, we'll upload more and more data here. But this is the page where everything is going to live in. So I'll share it here. And then ultimately, I want to get you guys the legacy names as soon as we can, because that's what is holding us from actually you guys logging those IMITS request tickets. That would be the next steps. Otherwise, there's nothing holding us from creating those tickets. So hopefully by tomorrow, we have kind of finalized the legacy names that we need IMITS to reference for us in the extracts, and then we can give you guys the green light to create the JIRA tickets. So IMITS can provide us the first extracts. Does that work for everybody? Anybody has any questions? Okay. Ultimately, there's also we track issues on JIRA. So if you're interested, or if we'll have this, we'll link once you create the tickets for IMITS, it will link to this here as well. So if you ever want to know about any JIRA tickets associated with Cutover, this is the link here. Otherwise, I think that's all I wanted to cover today. Kate, anything else you wanted to bring up?
No, I don't think so. Do you guys have any questions?
Okay. Or Linda, I see you're back. If there's anything else you'd like to add for today.
I don't think so.
Excellent.
So the deadline for the extracts is before September 8th, because you want IMITS to pull, like, when were you thinking the extracts to have all the JIRA tickets in for the extracts?
I was hoping this week. I recognize there's some things you need from us, like the legacy names. So by midweek, if we get it to you tomorrow, or we can talk about it maybe if we get you the names, the legacy names. But I was hoping this would happen this week so we can give IMITS 1 to 2 weeks to pull us the first extract, and then we can start doing the analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, once you have those names please let me know and I can create the ticket.
Yes. Okay, no problem, Deepa. I will let you know. We're meeting
Thank
tomorrow to finalize, so hopefully by tomorrow. Yeah, that's the first step here, and then we can once we get that back, we can do the analysis and go from there. Okay, any other questions? Christy or Nadia, anything else to add from your perspective, or we cover everything today?
No, I think that was really great and informative. Thank you for covering that.
Yes,
Okay.
I took some additional notes and I have a couple of action items, so I'll send those to the group afterwards. But thank you so much to Dana, Kate, as well as Linda for providing this knowledge. The SOP is super helpful, so hopefully it'll become useful for the RSDQ team.
Oh yeah, we very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. Also, with this recording, there's a transcribed. Do you guys want that transcribed document, or just the recording is good?
Maybe we'll just have both, just in case if we miss
Okay.
anything.
Okay. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm sure the BAs on my team, you know, to have that SOP to look back on is excellent. And all the old extract ticket links.
Wonderful. Well, I'm glad this was useful. And I know, Jackie, our teams have our weekly touch base. So there's always room for questions or clarifications, and we can bring it there, or email as always. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody.
Perfect.
Really glad
Thanks,
we were able to
everyone.
connect today. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.